Every hiker who disappeared on that mountain was found facing the same direction, deep into the wilderness. Happo Mountain, deep in a mountain range, was avoided by climbers. Locally, it was known as the mountain that swallows people. Search and rescue officer Fujimoto had participated in searches on that mountain many times. His job was to find missing hikers. But he began to notice something strange. The belongings of every missing person were neatly arranged beside the trail. Backpack, canteen, map, all carefully folded. As if each person had voluntarily stripped off their gear. And every missing hiker had left footprints leading deep into the mountain. The tracks always stopped abruptly. Beyond them, nothing. Fujimoto once heard from a hiker who had survived. "A white figure in the fog was beckoning to me," the man said. "Something felt wrong, so I ran the other way," he added. Fujimoto wondered, did the others who vanished not run? One year, while doing trail maintenance, he made a shocking discovery. Deep in the mountain was a derelict cabin. Its walls were covered in photographs of hikers. Smiling people walking in the mountains. Names and dates written on the back. Fujimoto found the names of every missing person he had ever searched for. But when he came to the last photograph, he dropped it. It was a photo of Fujimoto himself, with tomorrow's date written on the back. From that day, Fujimoto swore never to approach Happo Mountain again. But every night he dreams the same dream, the path leading into the mountain's depths. A white figure in the fog, beckoning to him. What is drawing people into the depths of that mountain remains unknown. Hikers still vanish on Happo Mountain every year. They disappear, leaving their belongings neatly arranged behind them. And new photographs, it is said, continue to appear on that cabin's walls. Fujimoto had no desire to find out who was placing them there. The next story tells of the terrifying old woman encountered on that same mountain. She had lived alone in that mountain hut for 70 years, but she had died 70 years ago. A group of university students lost their way on Happo Mountain during a summer climb. The fog thickened, and their maps and GPS were useless. As night began to fall and panic set in, they spotted a mountain hut. Warm light seeped from within, and smoke rose from the chimney. They knocked. A white-haired old woman answered the door. "You're lost, aren't you? Come in," the old woman said gently. Inside was clean, with a fire burning in the hearth. The old woman served them food. The students were deeply grateful. "Have you been here long?" one student asked. "About 70 years, the old woman answered quietly. The students exchanged glances but didn't think too hard about it. Exhausted, the students fell asleep right there in the hut. In the middle of the night, one student named Keisuke woke up. The old woman was sitting by the hearth, looking at something. He moved closer. It was an old photo album. Peering over her shoulder, he saw photographs of mountain hikers. And several pages in, photos of himself and his friends, taken that very day. Photos that could not possibly have been taken after they entered the mountain. Keisuke held his breath. The old woman noticed and turned around. "Oh, you're awake. It's already morning," she said calmly. Outside was already light, and the fog had cleared. The students thanked the old woman and descended the mountain. The following week, Keisuke visited a local library and researched the mountain. A newspaper article from 70 years ago featured the mountain hut's caretaker. Hut manager found dead from exposure, age 60. The photograph showed the old woman's face exactly. Keisuke hurried back to the mountain to find the hut again. But only ruins stood there, no trace of warmth or life. If you get lost on that mountain, the terror in the next story will be waiting for you. Even after 3 hours of walking, I was standing in front of the trailhead sign where I had started. Yosuke, who loved solo hiking, set out for Happo Mountain. He had promised his family, "If fog rolls in, I'll turn back." But with just an hour to the summit, fog appeared. Yosuke turned back, but the deeper he descended, the thicker the fog became. Following trail markers, he suddenly found himself back at the same sign. Thinking he'd gone the wrong way, he turned around and walked back. But again, the same sign. His watch showed 3 hours had passed. 3 hours of walking, always returning to the same spot. Yosuke suppressed his panic and tried to analyze the situation. Looking at the ground, he saw his own footprints tracing a perfect circle. He had no memory of walking in a circle. Then, a figure appeared in the fog. "Excuse me, I'm completely lost," Yosuke called out. The figure turned around. It wore Yosuke's own face. The other Yosuke said, "I'm lost too." Yosuke screamed and ran. He ran without knowing how far, and suddenly the fog cleared. He found himself standing in the trailhead parking lot. His watch showed only 20 minutes had passed since he'd left. But his body was exhausted, and the soles of his boots were worn away. The evidence of hours of walking remained in his body. Yosuke never climbed a mountain again. But even now, on foggy days, if he walks outside, his footprints form a circle. And sometimes, when he glances back, there is himself walking behind him. Perhaps the fog of Happo Mountain took a piece of Yosuke with it. Or perhaps another Yosuke is still wandering lost in the mountain. One thing is certain, something happens in that fog. Next, we will speak of the man whose time froze at the mountain summit. When I reached the summit, my watch showed a date 30 years in the past. Veteran climber Matsuda had scaled Happo Mountain more than 10 times. But one autumn, something extraordinary happened at the summit. The instant he reached the top, the surrounding landscape changed. The autumn foliage became spring blossoms. The cold autumn air became warm spring warmth. His watch showed a date 30 years earlier. His smartphone displayed a system error from 30 years ago. Matsuda looked around in confusion. A group of young hikers was eating lunch at the summit. Their clothing was in the style of the Showa era. "Excuse me, what is today's date?" Matsuda asked. One of them gave him a date 30 years in the past. "Your outfit is unusual," one of them remarked. Matsuda considered explaining that he was from the future, then stopped himself. Instead he asked, "Has anything strange ever happened on this mountain?" They looked at each other. "Last year, a man disappeared at the summit. There's a rumor that a middle-aged man who vanished here showed up 30 years later." "That middle-aged man would be," Matsuda started to say. Suddenly, the landscape snapped back. He was in the autumn summit again. His watch showed today's date. But at his feet lay an old coffee can, the same brand those hikers had been drinking. Matsuda rushed down the mountain and researched newspaper archives. He found a headline, "Man Goes Missing at Happo Mountain Summit." The photograph attached to the article showed a younger version of Matsuda. The article read, "Still missing as of current date. Matsuda remains, in the records, a missing person from 30 years ago." The Matsuda who returned to the present officially does not exist. The most ancient curse of this mountain is the subject of our final story. When the man came down from the mountain, his hair had gone completely white, and he never spoke another word. An old man who lived at the foot of Happo Mountain once told this story to village children. 30 years ago, a young man destroyed the stone shrine at the mountain summit. The shrine carried a warning, "Never destroy it." The young man laughed and called it superstition, and kicked the shrine apart. At that moment, the clear sky suddenly went dark. A deep groaning rose from the mountain, and the earth trembled. The young man ran in terror, but no matter which way he ran, he ended up back at the center of the mountain. For 3 days, the young man wandered the mountain. On the 4th morning, a villager found the young man at the mountain's entrance. In 3 days, his hair had turned completely white. His eyes were open, but he could not focus them. He never said a single word about what he had seen. The following year, villagers climbed to the summit to repair the shrine. The broken stones had been neatly rebuilt, as if someone had repaired them. But there were no footprints anywhere around it. From then on, strange things began happening every year on Happo Mountain. Near the summit at night, the sound of someone walking can be heard. But when you go to look, no one is there. Hikers walking alone say they feel as if someone is calling them from behind. But there is a warning never to look back. Those who turn around are found the following morning at the mountain's base, their hair turned white. The mountain god still guards the shrine and punishes those who transgress. The old man telling this story was speaking of his own experience 30 years ago. His white hair was proof. If you ever go to Happo Mountain, never touch the shrine. If you hear a voice from behind, never turn around. If fog rolls in, descend immediately. And never, ever go alone. The mountain god still dwells in the shrine at the summit.